Alphabet CEO Sundar Pichai is saying that the company is targeting electricity from nuclear plants for its data centers. Now, this comes against the backdrop of multiple nuclear plants set to reopen in Michigan and Pennsylvania that'll help fuel the AI boom. For more, we're going to bring in Durgesh Chopra, Managing Director covering power and utilities over at Evercore ISI. Durgesh, thank you so much for being here with us. So it's interesting. It feels like, to those of us who just cover markets and don't necessarily make money off of it, that overnight these nuclear plays were just booming, right? Vista overtaking NVIDIA for gains in the S&P 500 year to date, for example. What do you think was that single catalyst that kind of pushed these nuclear plays into the foreground here?
Well, thanks for having me. And just broadly speaking, IPPs, whether it's Constellation, Vista Energy, the single largest catalyst was the need for clean energy, 24/7 energy by these data centers, which these non-regulated power producers have and can channel to these companies. These companies need the power now, and nuclear, the non-regulated nuclear operators like Constellation, like Vista, like PSENG, are able to enter into long-term contracts and provided that 24/7 power to them, which also has the clean energy attributes.
3 Mile Island reopening, one of the sites reopening there. I mean, I didn't have that on my scorecard for 2024 for something that I was going to read in the news. Is that something that investors should expect more of? Is it nuclear power plants that we know of that are closed that these companies are going to be going to and finding opportunities to reopen? I mean, how big is that opportunity there?
Yeah, Josh, you and me both. That's right. 3 Mile Island is coming back online. I think there are other opportunities. Palisades, you mentioned, in Michigan. There's NextEra's, Duane Arnold plant in Iowa. So I think that besides these opportunities, the combined add up roughly around 1.5 gigawatts. There's also uprates or efficiency gains at these nuclear plants, which these companies are going to pursue. But yes, that's going to be the next big thing.
Is the market potentially getting over its skis given some of the regulatory pressures that could come even with regards to 3 Mile Island here?
I really think that there's a lot of demand here that needs to be satisfied. 3 Mile Island coming back is actually a really good thing, right? Because they're actually adding new capacity to the PJM market, new supply. I do think the points you're raising are valid. We have to be careful to balance this demand trend that we bring supply on time while also not disrupting the balance of residential customer bills. So I think that's a key challenge, but this is a good position for utilities to be in. We haven't seen demand growth in decades, the top line growth, and we're finally seeing it. So this is an opportunity, but like with power comes a lot of responsibilities. I think this is one of those circumstances.
Durgesh, you just mentioned utilities. I want to talk utilities broadly for a second here, right? And just talk about XLU. It's the leading sector in the S&P 500. Was looking at a chart today. It's trading well above its 200-day moving average. The sector hasn't been trading this high above that technical level since the dot-com bubble. I mean, do you think just the sector as a whole is perhaps overbought in some ways? And how should investors that are hearing about utilities, hearing about this energy boom, how should you sort of assess where to get in there and where to pick your spots?
Yeah, I don't think it's overbought. So if you look at the sector, just much like the S&P 500, there are 4 or 5 stocks, which are the IPPs that we just talked about, and some of the diversified companies, all power producers. They are driving these gains. I tell you what, looking here, some of these IPPs may seem expensive on earnings, but there's a tremendous amount of EPS upside. We layered it out in our research, but there's about 30-40% earnings upside. So no, I think there's more to go. I think the UTY or the XLU ends the quarter outperforming the market, led by these IPPs and the diversified names. The regulated utilities, they've kind of, if you look at them, performed in line with the S&P 500, the more traditional utilities. But again, there's a ton of upside for them as well with the CI trend. Rates moving lower is a tailwind. Inflation coming down is a tailwind.
When do we start to see everything that we're talking about, to your point, start to come up in these company earnings? Like next quarter, is Constellation going to totally rip after their earnings print, or will it take a little while?
No, I think it takes a while. I think they just made an announcement, and I think the CEO has been very clear that these are opportunities over the longer run, right? The 3 Mile Island earnings don't hit until 2030. That's going to be the story for the rest of the utility sector. Look, the reality is you build something new today, whether it's a gas plant, whether it's wind solar storage, small modular reactors, all of these technologies are 5 to 7 years build time, right? And small modular reactors is very nascent technology. So these things are going to take some time, but they're all additive to earnings and should boost the long-term growth profile of utility sector.
Durgesh Chopra, appreciate you joining us today. We're going to have to wrap it there.